We're going Japanese. Use your US dollar savings to buy the Japanese yen, and in 6 months' time, buy back the US dollar and then buy the gold coins you've been after. Trump is going to do a big favour for the US and in good turn as well for the gold and silver stackers. Trump will devalue the US dollar to make exports easier, and he'll also use quantitative easing by raising the debt ceiling to pay for the tax cuts that he wants. Trump has called out the Japanese economy for many years now for its low currency and low lending rates. Japan will comply and will allow the Japanese currency to appreciate as the US dollar devalues. Buy the Japanese yen now and over the coming months as you save your cash ready to buy gold. Later in 2025, sell the yen back for the depreciated dollar and buy gold. We love silver coins, but we want gold. Gold is a better investment. Gold is a store of value, and premiums are less than 5%. But it costs $2.5 to $3 per 1 ounce. Silver costs $35 to $45 an ounce, but has a 15% premium, has 25% spread. Its unstable fluctuation makes it less of an investment but more of a fun buy. Silver is partly a store of wealth, but really its industrial hype is overvalued. Working class silver stackers need and want gold. Team Trump 2.0 may not be the liberals' dream boy, and he certainly gave the brat a spanking, and Musk will ensure that to be woke is to be broke if you work for the government. Love him or loathe him, Trump and Trump economics may turn out to be good for working class stackers trying to get into gold. How, you ask me? Well, let me tell you. You remember just before Christmas when the Democrats and Republicans were about to agree on a bipartisan budget for the holidays, and Musk took over as president, telling the Republicans to bail out of the deal? Then Vice President Trump demanded an end to the debt ceiling. Well, that's partly a look at how the future's going to pan out. Let's look at what Trump economics is going to mean, good or bad for the US economy. I think it's actually going to be quite a nice surprising ride for gold and silver stackers. First of all, no debt ceiling. Well, we know what that means. Generally, it means that the currency, the US dollar in particular as a global currency, is going to be devalued, and that generally means a turn towards gold as an alternative safe haven, although of course Trump's own sponsorship and backing of crypto is going to make that a bit of an alternative option. Secondly, tax cuts for the super rich and maybe for other people. Remember, he's been talking about ending tax on tips for waiting staff. Mass deportations, well, that's already starting to work out to have its ups and downs, and whether it's actually possible is another matter, and certainly it's going to affect the agricultural industry. Land grabs on Canada and Panama and Greenland, well, to some extent maybe they're just a bit of fiction or a bit of rough play as far as international diplomacy is concerned. We'll have to see how that goes. But the repatriation of industry, the idea of bringing back manufacturing to the United States, is certainly something that he's keen on playing on. Now, how that can actually take place with, after all, the de-skilling of industrial labour since the Reaganomics period, of when there was a purpose plan to deindustrialize, deunionize American labor, and then under Clinton the idea of neoliberalism and the shifting of service industry becoming, rather than industrial industry, becoming the preference for American capital. tariffs certainly is going to be a big thing for Trump. Now, to some extent, a lot of that is just going to be negotiations to try and get a better deal for the US trade deficit and for the US benefits. And, you know, of course, that could all end up better for the US economy. But a big part of it, of course, is going to be devaluation and a cut in interest rates and a general devaluation. And something in that theme, Trump has been talking about forcing Japan to increase the value of the yen. He talks about the yen being undervalued for way too long, and it has been. And the Japanese themselves would love to see the Japanese yen go up in value. They're just not in a position to be able to force it themselves. So if Trump can force the value of the yen up, or more likely force the value of the US dollar down in comparison to currencies like the Japanese yen, the Japanese will not fight it and try to follow him down. Now, Europe, Britain and Australia will follow the US in a race to the bottom to keep their currencies competitive in international markets, and they too will be wanting to deflate their economies to get rid of interest rates, whereas Japan wants to increase interest rates. It's had almost zero interest rates for a long time. It's part of the lost decades problem that they had. And Japan is starting to play with increasing interest rates and wants to go higher. It's just that Japan does not want to wish for what it wants in case it brings upon itself a plague upon its own house. So if Trump initiates the policies that Japan wants, and that is a increase in the value of the Japanese yen, and allows them to increase interest rates at the time when Western markets are devaluing their currencies and getting rid of reducing interest rates, Japan will go with it. So my solution to the challenges of trying to buy gold, which is a hard proposition for working class savers. We can buy silver because it is only $30 to $40 per ounce, whereas this gold that we're after is 2,500 or 2,500, as you might say in the US, or to 3,000 US dollars as it might become, which is why we want it, as well as because of its lower premiums. That what I'm suggesting today is that our solution is that whilst today the US dollar is still in ascendancy around the end of 2024 and into 2025, that after the Trump inauguration the US dollar is going to be devalued. So what I'm saying is, whatever you can save in US dollars in the next 3 months, change it into the Japanese yen. Yes, that's what I'm saying. The people who bombed Pearl Harbor, who had suicide dive bombers onto US aircraft carriers in the Second World War, who cruelly imprisoned US, UK and Australian prisoners of war across countries like Thailand and Asia in the Second World War, who it was devised by the US that after a massive firebombing of Japanese towns and cities, decided to drop the atom bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima to try and show to the Asian nations that they had to succumb to American might. But then after the rebuilding of Japan's economy under the Marshall Plan, that led to the competition against the American automobile industry from the might of the high quality Nissan, Honda, Suzuki and Yamaha, that became the great assault on the brands like Harley Davidson, Ford and General Motors. Today I am saying you are going to swap the US dollar for the Japanese yen, and then after the devaluation of the US dollar, when the Japanese yen is in its ascendancy, and you've saved enough money to buy your first 1 ounce of gold coin, or at least a half ounce of gold coin, swap that Japanese yen back into the devalued US dollar. You'll get a lot more US dollar, hopefully gaining 10 or 20% in its value, and then you'll be able to buy the gold coin. So my strategy for 2025 is not the gold to silver, the silver to gold ratio, and to do the silver to gold swap. That is well and truly gone for now. My strategy is to swap the US dollar for the Japanese yen, and then swap it back when the price is right and you've saved up enough. You've still got to do the saving. Then buy yourself your first half or quarter or 4 ounce of gold on the back of the rising Japanese son, the Japanese yen, in 2025.